A number of people have written to me complaining about the subliminal influence of a lot of figure 2s appearing in the most unexpected of places on this station. Well, join me for the first in a new series of Have I Got News For You, and I can promise an evening of entertainment completely devoid of surreptitious 2s, as can our team captains, Ian Hislop and Paul Merton, along with our special guest, Daisy the Cow.
Tonight at 10 on 2.
Picket line violence erupts into a full-scale riot in BBC One's Between the Lines shortly, and when the police are accused of brutality, it becomes a case for internal investigations. Here on BBC Two now, we begin a new series for our War and Peace season. Looking into the lives behind the names on our nation's war memorials, we commemorate the courage and sacrifice of those splendid hearts.
From the First World War, Edward Baker, Oliver Baker, Joseph Bloch.
I only know that you may lie day long and watch the Cambridge sky, and flower-lulled in sleepy grass, hear the cool lapse of hours pass, until the centuries blend and blur in Grantchester, in Grantchester.
Walker Gillis, Walker Borden, Joseph Brady.
There's peace and holy quiet there, great clouds along Pacific skies, and men and women with straight eyes, live children lovelier than a dream, a bosky wood, a slumbrous stream. Oh, God, to see the branches stir across the moon at Grantchester.
Rupert Brooke wrote his poem when he was abroad in Berlin and was pining for Grantchester, which he obviously loved. He didn't live in the village for very long. He was a lodger in 2 different houses, and the second one, the old vicarage, is the one that is mostly known. Our old neighbour said that he was simply called that long-haired poet, and they reckoned he was pretty eccentric. He was rushing around bare feet, and frequently, I think, without clothes on, and rushing into the river with his equally rather strange friends. And I think the village just thought they were all a bit weird.
I suppose I'm known as a war poet, but it was actually only a fragment of my life, albeit a kind of culmination. Well, the end. After all, it's not even as if I were killed in action, unless it be called action to be bitten by a Mediterranean mosquito. It's hardly heroic.
He is on our war memorial, obviously the most well-known of the people on it, and people come now still to see his name.
April 26th, 1916. Rupert Brooke is dead. This life has closed at the moment when it seemed to have reached its springtime. During the last few months of his life, the poet-soldier told with all the simple force of genius the triumph of a sincere and valiant spirit. He expected to die. He was willing to die for the dear England whose beauty and majesty he knew.
There's no record in parish council minutes as to why Rupert Brooke should particularly be included on the war memorial. I think that human nature being what it is, it was probably thought that this was a famous person by that stage, and so it would be quite nice to include him in 1921 when the war memorial was built.
From the First World War, Edward Baker, Oliver Baker, Joseph Bloch, George Bolton, Walter Bolton, Rupert Brooke.
There are 25 names in our Book of Remembrance.
Ernest
And on Remembrance Day each year, my husband reads out these names in church at the service. And one year, it occurred to us that we didn't know really who these people were. And as new people came into the village, less and less was known about them. Ma suggested that we should do research into their backgrounds and find out a bit about who they were.
Walter Gordon, Joseph Grey Goose, Charles Hubbard, Frank Hawley,
My name's Stan Pawley, and I lost my brother Frank in the 1914 war. And this is a medal sent to my mother after he got killed. My brother Gilbert and my brother Frank, they were so much alike, because they was twins. They called them the Pawley Puzzles. They used to get blamed for each other's troubles, you see. My brother Frank, he used to go gardening. Then, of course, what happened, the war broke out. And, of course, they was always changing jobs. And, of course, they come home midday and my mother said, what sort of jobs you got? So we got a different job and they didn't tell her, you see. And, of course, they joined up. About a fortnight after that, because they didn't get the uniforms straight away, they come home on the khaki, you know, they had the brass buttons and all that. God, my mother nearly went mad. She said, what do you think you're doing? You're not old enough, you see. Ah, well, they said the war would be over about 5 or 6 weeks. That's what everybody thought, you see.
Now God be thanked who has matched us with his hour, and caught our youth and wakened us from sleeping, with hand made sure, clear eye and sharpened power, to turn as swimmers into cleanness leaping.
I think the losses in the First War had a terrific impact on village life. There was a very great feeling of whether you were going to hear bad news the next day.
There were so many rumours, you see, about getting killed. I mean, you go up the village and they say, oh, your father. I used to come home and tell my mother that, and of course upset her. And then, of course, they got Frank or Perce was killed. There was always rumours them days, you see, because there wasn't any communication like there was in this last war. When my brother Perce come home, I was sitting in the house and he put his head round the door and he says, Mother there? And I said, she's upstairs, and of course I shouted. He said, tell her, put the copper on, because we used to have old coppers them days. There were no bathrooms or anything like that. And he said, because I'm lousy. He said, I daren't come in. He was absolutely lousy. He come straight out the street. You know, you go in the town, you see him come on leaving all clay. They used to have putties on, you see, them days, all that business. And they was all clay, they didn't. It was terrible, they didn't buy, they ain't got no convenience or anything. And my brother Frank, the last time I see him, he borrowed my father's bike, and he turned around, I see him now, and he just waved his hand, and that was the last time I see him, he put his hand up, just up the road. Yes, but it's... I relived that. I'm always reliving that. I was in the last one. This one, I've got 2 children. But he wasn't like that. It's funny. Well, of course, I wasn't very old, you see, and that's always played on my memory.
Ernest Dilly, Walter Dilly.
Walter Dilly came from a family that was in the village for about 100 years before the First War. A big family, a family that lost a lot of children in early childhood. After he left school, he was a gardener for a family in Cambridge. We really know very little about him. Walter is commemorated on the Menin Gate, a large memorial on the edge of the old city of Ypres. 55,000 men are commemorated on this wonderful monument, all of them having no known grave.
I'm Tony Noyes. I'm the Deputy Chairman of the Western Front Association. My wife is Chairman of the Cambridgeshire area of that association. The association exists to commemorate all the men who fought in the Great War, very largely on the Western Front. One does become involved emotionally with them, especially when you stand in the positions where they fought.
Well, the Cambridgeshires made good time from their start time. They got to Canvas Trench in that field where the cows are, and they took cover. And they waited for their appointed time to assault Hill 19, which is across this field, and this is Hill 19. A and C companies attacked the hill. D company attacked Border House, which is on the end of these fence posts. Luckily, at the time they had to assault 19, the mist came down, and they had fairly light casualties getting to Hill 19.
But Dilly was probably one of those casualties getting to 19.
It's possible. Or he could have been killed when they had to retreat at the end of the day. Because when the mist lifted, they came under tremendous shell fire and machine gun fire. So in the afternoon, late afternoon, they fell back to Canvas Trench and then behind. And it was during the afternoon shelling and the falling back.
So with artillery shells, they could have been blown to pieces.
Oh, certainly, yes.
So Dilly could still be in these fields?
Yes.
I've got them.
There you go.
There they are, look.
And how many did I lose that day?
16 officers and 286 men became casualties in that action on the 31st of July. There he is.
With his mates.
With his friends.
This is the 75th anniversary of Passchendaele. To have fought in that battle, a veteran today has to be a minimum of 93, 94. This really has to be the last time which will see a large group of veterans at the Menning Gate for the last post.
My name is Norman Tennant. I'm now 96. I joined the Territorial Army in the Royal Field Artillery. The buglers at 8 o'clock every night, that always breaks me down. I can't help the tears rolling on those occasions, just the sound of that and the thoughts of what it means. The names of those thousands and thousands of men who have no known graves anywhere, that always gives me something to think about, and that I feel very emotional about that, because they are people who have either been blown to bits and never recovered as a body, or they've possibly been wounded, they've fallen into a flooded shell hole, and they've possibly slid gradually down under the water, and they would never be collected. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Remember them.
Alfred Cutter, Ernest Dilly, Walter Dilly, Walter Gordon,
That's Panner, isn't it? It's called Panagon. Oh, yeah, he was a good footballer. I remember him playing. They used to play, that's the regular club, they used to play here, I remember that. They used to live just up here. They used to call him Panner. I don't know what they called him Panner for.
Walter Gordon was a member of a family that worked on the land. Walter himself worked as a garden boy at a large house down towards the south of the village called Riversdale. His fiancée was nanny for the Ashton family for whom Walter was working before he was called up.
He was a very good-hearted fellow, very gentle and sporty. You'd never hear him sort of say a swear word to anybody. I didn't. Poor Uncle Panner. He got engaged to me, and he went almost straight away to France. And he'd been out there some little time, and he became a sergeant. And there were some men in a dugout. Whether they was his men or not, I don't know. But as he went to the dugout, someone shot him, and it went right through his breast pocket and through her photo. It was rumoured in the village that someone had got a grudge against him, but if they did, I don't know why they'd done it.
A good many people were done.
I think it was just a rumour around, because there were certain people that didn't like people like Walter was.
That's the way they were treated, that's the
yes,
trouble.
and they were treated, but I do think as he got a sergeant, he might have got a little bit, you know, hoity-toity.
Big-headed.
I would imagine, I don't know. I suppose probably crossed one or two of them, and that was that.
And you got to cross one bullet to do it.
But he was always, you know, always joking. I never heard him say a cross word. They was all very upset because Uncle Pan had got killed naturally. Poor Gran, she couldn't forget it for a long, long time, because see, I think just a little while before that she lost one son, and I think that was still on her mind, which is buried at Grantchester, and they got Panner's name on his stone. And I think that she was still brooding over that.
My name is Tim Norris. I'm 93, 6 months.
What were you feeling when you were standing under the many gates and the last post was being placed?
I cried. The first time I cried, I couldn't help. Forgive me. It's
What were you thinking about when you were standing under them?
well, you see, I lost both my teams. The other 5 got killed, you see. I'm the lucky one. The gun got blown to pieces up at Passionell. I survived it. They just got killed and that's it. They got taken away somewhere. I don't know where they went. Germans began to get out of their trenches and run, you see. That's when I saw the machine gun coming into action. It mowed them down. I don't know if it was through me being a good shot, but I used to see them fall. I have thought many a time in my spare moments, what a shame. Those people have got families probably. You don't realise it till you've had a family of your own and been married. I think you're a bit tough when you're young. Well, I was a bit tough. We was known by John, and Charlie was another one. Jack was another one. Although we was with them, I forget their names. If you gave me £1,000, I couldn't tell you if it was one of my crew.
If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's, breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home.
I just don't understand why people make such a fuss about him. Because he went out to write them poems, you know, them silly poems, and I suppose that's what made him famous. But that's for putting his name on the wall. I mean, it's so stupid, isn't it? I said he wasn't here in a couple of years.
It's a memorial for people who have died in battle and war. And Rupert Buck didn't die that way. He didn't earn the credit to be on it like other men who had died in battle.
Nicholas was in the choir, and we began to lay them when we explained what Remembrance Day meant to him. And as far as he was concerned, he was a bereaved grandson because both grandfathers are now dead. Both of them were in the war, both of them suffered in the war, so both of them had wreaths.
The reading of the names then took place, and the names suddenly jolted me as these were meaningful people, and it was quite unexpected to me.
It reminds you that they were individual people who had families and mothers and fathers and children.
If I identify what happened to my father, I then think of what must have happened to other people's fathers. He died of 100% disability due to war wounds. He'd lost a leg in his First World War, and he was having nightmares then that I didn't understand. And then when I did start to understand 20 years later, when I was 24, 25 onwards, I realized he'd had nightmares ever since the First World War.
Blow out, you bugles, over the rich dead. There's none of these so lonely and poor of old, but dying has made us rarer gifts than gold. These laid the world away, poured out the red, sweet wine of youth, gave up the years to be, of work and joy, and that unhoped serene that men call age. And those who would have been, their sons, they gave their immortality.
Well, I think Rupert Brooke is a representative of the sort of things about remembrance services that people can find difficult and hurtful, that it's all very well to call them the glorious dead, or as on the Grantchester Memorial, men with splendid hearts, but they were ordinary people who died, and fine words don't really compensate for the loss and the death and the suffering.
They are not just any old names, though we cannot know them for the most part as people with links to our own lives. But these people shared our flesh. They shared our living and our dying.
I would say do away with it because I don't believe in it. After all these wars, it's not doing any good. It only brings memories back. And I don't want any memories because every day that I relive that every day.
I think if you can forget about some of it, it's better for you. It only brings you back to, what should I say, well, it's sadness, isn't it, all the time, to see all that lot that's gone. When in the prime of life, there's so many that were 18, weren't they, on those tombstones? There were so many 18 there gone. Well, they haven't had a chance to see life, have they?
I found that some hymns or some pieces of music or something like that would affect me emotionally, and I would be standing there or sitting there or kneeling there or whatever was happening, and the tears just rolled down my cheeks. And I felt a fool, but I couldn't help it. But that sometimes happened on those occasions when I thought of the sadness of the whole business. Just the awful waste and sadness.
George Bolton, Walter Bolton, Rupert Brooke, Alfred Cutter, Ernest Dilly, Walter Dilly, Walter Gordon, Joseph Greygoose, Charles Hubbard, Frank Hawley, James Blount, Harold Smith,
That programme will be reviewed in Sunday's Did You See at 8:10. Next week at the same time, the stories behind 3 of the 20,000 people commemorated on the walls of Runnymede, and the trauma for relatives who find it impossible to mourn at a name carved in stone.
Food and Drink is back with a new series and a new look. We'll be travelling with a team of British Rail chefs cooking on a French train. There's Irish stew at a sheep auction in Northern Ireland, 2 top chefs designing the menu for a round-the-world yacht crew, and for starters, a British family swaps with a Russian one to join the food queues in Moscow.
Plus a new regular feature on enjoying wine.
I'll drink to that. And the craftiest cooking in our countdown to Christmas. Don't miss it.
Food and Drink, Tuesday, 8:30 on BBC Two.
Vicious satire with no prisoners now on 2. Angus Deaton opens a new series of Have I Got News for You?